X is a right-wing platform now, including the far right. I mean, we all saw it coming, but they've definitely arrived at their destination. And as I've said before, anywhere that people can have discussions online, if it's under-moderated, people on the left leave. If it's over-moderated, people on the right leave. If you want somewhere that's over-moderated, there's Threads. If you want somewhere that's under-moderated, there's X. But on X, it's not just a simple issue of under-moderation.
What's not just a simple issue of under-moderation? Or is it under-moderation that's an issue? Why? For anyone wondering what this is all about, YouTube recommended this video by Kizume to me. It's called X is definitely a right-wing platform now. So let's continue.
Elon regularly boosts far-right content, so everyone who's looking at the For You feed and not the following feed can see this stuff. It's boosted all over the place. And mindsets that Elon doesn't like very much, he, deboosts or whatever you call it. He kind of hides. There's a phrase for it, and I forgot what it is. And there's nothing wrong with a site that features right-wing views the most. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Okay, but why would anyone think there was even something wrong with that anyway?
People should have a place to go. I'd like to say it's refreshing, but it's actually gotten kind of old.
It's gotten old. Well, you know what else gets old? People get old. But even saying something is old doesn't necessarily mean what's old is obliged to change so it becomes anything else. Especially when that change is just catering to the subjective tastes of one individual. And regardless of all that, you did say this.
And there's nothing wrong with a site that features right-wing views the most. Nothing wrong with that at all.
So even if stuff has gotten old, you've already said that there's nothing wrong with it anyway, right? So does anything really need to change?
The same old fear-mongering over and over again. For instance, I understand that our borders are important, but the way that you talk about immigrants, it's sickening sometimes.
Well, how is it sickening when you have already admitted there was nothing wrong with it anyway?
And on X, I regularly see insults, not comedy, but insults, genuine insults, ones that are trying to punch down as much as possible. And I don't like the phrase punching down very much, but in this case it fits.
But again, there's nothing wrong with it, right?
I don't believe comedy needs to be punching up. That gets old after just a short time, really. Hey, let's make fun of this president or this high figure or that high figure. It's like, yeah, that gets old after a while, but there's plenty of funny comedy that punches down. But much of the time, as I said, this isn't comedy, it's just pure insults. So it's a place to get a thicker skin. There's nothing wrong with a place like that existing.
And see here, you've solidified your previous statement about there being nothing wrong with the existence of something.
It's just highly unusual to have a place such as X be allowed to exist and be as big as it is without getting squashed down.
Well, here saying something is highly unusual contradicts the earlier assertions that something gets old. Unusual things are things that do not happen regularly, implying this is something not seen before and therefore not old. Also, squashed down by whom? And for what purpose would the squashing occur?
Particularly considering the social rules that have been on social media since social media's inception.
Social rules? Those don't exist. And even if they did, and they have been around since social media's inception, wouldn't that also mean they have gotten old too? Just saying this gotten old assertion just sounds like you would prefer things your way and not any other way.
It's anti-establishment in one regard and bootlicking in another regard. Instead of fuck the police, it's bootlick the police, but fuck the mainstream establishment. And fuck Marxist-inspired sociology that gets taught at colleges. Fuck Hollywood, fuck divisive news media. But still, bootlick the police. Bootlick the notion of strong authority. Bootlick all forms of masculinity. I guess you could say it's a very strange new form of a punk attitude.
In other words, people are changing their minds. They're not necessarily aligned with your masters, they are aligned with their own.
When it comes to punk, it's hard to claim you're punk if you have everything important and powerful on your side.
Except you just said that they were anti-establishment. In other words, their values are aligned elsewhere.
Hollywood, colleges, mainstream media, and most social media. So when you're supposedly raging against the machine, it looks to a lot of people like you're raging with the machine. Except for police, of course, they're always bad. Because after all cops are bastards, right? That's how you're punk. As long as you're against the police, then everything else, nothing else matters. You just have to be against the police. Okay.
No, the best way to improve the machine is to break it down first and then rebuild it after having removed its flaws. That is what's actually going on here. Just because you rage against the machine doesn't necessarily mean you no longer want to be part of it entirely.
And against the systems of oppression that they teach about in college, right?
Yes, college professors teach you about systems of oppression in a country where you can choose to pay for an education that teaches you about systems of oppression. Wow. I feel smarter already.
But anyway, X is a place where you can say the N-word and you can say the anti-gay F-word all you want. You can call people cunts, bitches, rednecks, what have you. Just about everything under the sun. But you can't say cis or cisgender, because that offends Elon. You can have discussions that are similar to the family table discussions that were featured in American History X. Same stuff, same concepts, with nobody countering their arguments with anything solid. Granted, there are some arguments that are genuinely hard to refute. And all of this stuff is boosted. So when I want to see that side of things, I go to X. If I want a left-tilting social media site, I'll go to Threads. So yes, X is pretty much a right-wing site now. People on the left are free to go to it, but they might not like what they see.
Or they might like what they see. Nobody is obligated to remain politically static or maintain a strict reactionary policy against ideas that challenge their own.
Anyway, have a joy day.
In the end, I am uncertain as to what one is supposed to have walked away with here, if anything, as a result of one's listening to this video. What I suspect is that Kazume actually does have a problem with how X has evolved over time, the website better reflecting the present day aside from how it used to be. However, Kazume doesn't seem to want to tie himself to an assertion that would constitute an absolute moral judgment on what is going on, so he says and repeats, "There's nothing wrong with it." Well, dude, if there's nothing wrong with this, then wouldn't the most appropriate course of action be to do some soul searching? Like, figure out why you're so upset if you also admit there's nothing to be upset about. Otherwise, you've rendered your perturbations toothless. Last thing I want to pick on is the use of the term anti-establishment, because this gives everything away. I've caught you, Kazume. You can't weasel your way out of this one. The fact that you even use this term tells me that for certain you know. Oh yes, you know exactly what is going on here. You know you're not really the underdog. You know you are essentially a part of the establishment. You know you're part of this woke mob, backed by celebrities, people with money, by the mainstream media, by big tech, by big corpo, all of it. You know that you are the tyrant, or at least you're aligned with them. And so this indignation that you have, it's just pathetic. It's weak. People like you are losers. You have no self-worth, and so you must necessarily align yourself with these tyrants. For the longest time, you leaned on powers greater than you were in order to substantiate your own worth, including your proclivities, whatever they were. But now, society is evolving beyond you, and you're barely catching up because you're old. And I can say that because I'm also old. But the fact of the matter is, all the stories about the underdog rising up and overcoming the powers that be, it's all true. It's all coming to fruition. And you are being caught in the crosshairs. How then does it feel to know that you're not on the side that you thought you were? That you thought you were the little guy fighting giants, but in fact you were just aligned with the giants the whole time, until you realize they were all being toppled. No, the world isn't yours anymore, and that upsets you greatly.